Republican Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma, chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. I don't think anybody is happy about a government shutdown. Both parties are blaming each other, and I think the folks at home often get confused about where we stand on this. Give us your take. Why have Democrats not voted for those continuing resolutions, for instance?
Well, thanks, John, and thanks for having me on. Great question. Quite frankly, the House has done its job. In other words, we've actually passed legislation to give us an additional 7 weeks to continue to work on the normal appropriations process. The Senate, I was quick to point out, has a bipartisan majority in favor of doing just that. 55 senators have voted for that, obviously 3 Democrats amongst them. But we got to get to 60. That's not in the Constitution. That's not a law, but it is a Senate rule, and it's one that obviously is in force during this crisis. So I think the Democrats, quite frankly, just are throwing a temper tantrum. Look, we're willing to negotiate on these other matters, but we're not willing to shut down the government. And it's an enormous mistake. It's costing the American people every day, as you pointed out. But it's not just the money, it's the needed services. It's also the fact that we're not paying people that we're asking to work, like our military, like our air traffic controllers, like our border security people and our law enforcement officials. All those people provide essential services. They're delivering them. We're just not fulfilling our part of the bargain. That's up to the Democrats. Again, they've made this decision. Historically, they've argued we should just keep the government open and keep negotiating when we have differences. I agree with that. I'm surprised they're not living up to that right now.
I want to play for you something from Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, the minority leader in the House of Representatives. He says your party is not talking to him. Listen.
Well, the last time there was a conversation with Republican leadership was in the White House meeting last Monday. And unfortunately, since that point in time, Republicans, including Donald Trump, have gone radio silent. And what we've seen is negotiation through deep fake videos, the House canceling votes, and of course, President Trump spending yesterday on the golf course. That's not responsible behavior. As Democrats, our view is that we will find bipartisan common ground with our Republican colleagues to reopen the government.
So how would you address the minority leader? How would you respond?
Well, first of all, the irresponsibility here of people shutting down a government, and unfortunately, Leader Jeffries has been a leader in doing that. Now, at this point in the discussion, he's really sort of irrelevant. I mean, the reality is the House has already passed the bill, so there's no need to be talking to Democratic congressmen about reopening the government. The House has made that decision. The real issue is in the United States Senate. And I do think there's considerable amount of communication going there amongst senators. I certainly talked to some of my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle that tell me they're in communication with Democrats. So I know that's going on. I don't think anybody's happy about this. But again, right now, the action is in the Senate. As soon as they reopen the government, we can move on to some of the other affairs. Plus, much more importantly, in my view, is having normal appropriations bills. We've got 3 bills we're almost ready to pass, but obviously you can't do it while the government's shut down and the Senate is frankly not functioning appropriately.
During past government shutdowns, Republicans have taken the blame, and it has hurt their party, hurt their standing among voters. What about this time, though?
Well, in 2 of the 3 past ones, we deserve the blame. Quite frankly, that was a Republican decision to shut down the government in 2013 to try and repeal Obamacare. It didn't work. Later in 2018-19, the government was partially shut down to try and force the construction of the wall. That didn't work. I can also point out Democrats in 2018 shut the government down for a few days over what's called DACA to try and force reforms in that immigration policy. That didn't work. This is not going to work either. So I think the American people are awfully smart. They figured out, they understand that certainly the House under Republican control has passed legislation to open the government over Mr. Jeffries' objections. And frankly, again, a majority of the United States Senate, a bipartisan majority, has voted the same way. We're just a little bit short in terms of a few Democratic senators. But I think this is at odds with where they've been in the past. They're doing something that they've condemned Republicans for doing in the past. And I think, look, I never favored government shutdown. I think they were appropriate now. But now the hypocrisy here, having denounced shutdowns repeatedly, is just breathtaking. And sooner or later, the American people figured out that particularly their concentration is getting more focused as they see, number one, people that they respect, like the military, like air traffic controllers, being forced to work without pay. And they're beginning to see the lack of services in their own lives. We may even get to the point where we're not extending literally help to women and children on the so-called WIC program that helps particularly single parents or low-income parents put food on the table. Look, those are terrible things, and all you got to do is reopen the government, and we can talk about the other issues Democrats are concerned about.
All right. The chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Congressman Tom Cole, Republican of Oklahoma.
John, thanks for having me.
You bet.